I've been to the old jail in St. Augustine twice. And I have to say, the first time I went, I was a little hesitant about going because it just seemed kind of hokey to me and like it was a tourist trap. But I said, I'll go ahead and go on the tour. And when I did, I found out I was completely wrong. If you're ever in St. Augustine, you really must go check out the old jail. A lot of history here. First of all, you've heard me mention the name of Henry Flagler many times, especially when it comes to St. Augustine, because he built a ton of stuff there. And the old jail is one of those places that he built. Construction began back in 1888 and the jail opened in 1891. And at first they were going to try to put it closer to the city, and Henry Flagler didn't like that because he didn't want people to think it was a hotel. So he went down to City Hall, who said they were not going to move it, and brought $10,000 with him, and they said, okay, we'll move it. So they moved it farther away from the city. Picture of it, it's built in the Romanesque Revival style for architecture. The first sheriff here was Sheriff Joe Perry. And he decided that he wanted to live on the premises. Now, most people would think that's not the best idea. Even worse, he wanted to have his wife and children with him, and he had two daughters. Can you imagine? Right next to the jail, like as part of the jail. He was such a strict enforcer that he didn't worry that anything was going to happen when it came to his children. And not only was he a strict disciplinarian who kept his prisoners in line, he also happened to be 6'6" and 300 pounds. He was an imposing figure. Nobody wanted to mess with him. Here I have some pictures of the inside of his residence. For him, it was really, really comfortable. For the prisoners, it was not comfortable. I'm going to be showing you a video of the cells in just a moment. But before I do that, this jail was like every other one. It had solitary confinement where you would be thrown in. It would be completely dark. It was a very small cell. You might be lucky to get bread and water in there. You were lucky to survive. The rest of the cells were set up exactly like those at Alcatraz because the builders of Alcatraz also built the old jail in St. Augustine. So it's very cool. If you've never been to Alcatraz, you at least get to see how the mechanisms and everything worked, because here we have them in St. Augustine as well. This jail housed both men and women, just like most of the jails at that time. They were in separate quarters and worked mostly in the kitchen while the men worked out on the chain gangs. And here is one of those chain gang wagons that they would get taken out on. Here's the kitchen where the women would work. No running water at the jail. So honey buckets were used for waste, and you would throw them out of your jail cell just outside of the jail if you were in one of the outer cells. Some people weren't in an outer cell, so you had to ask the other cells, will you throw this out for us? But you had to keep it in your cell the whole time. Well, the other cells could at least get rid of it as they were going along. Also, since there's no running water, how do we take baths? Inmates got to take a bath once a month. Oh my gosh, you can imagine how that smelled. And here's what's really great for the ladies. The men would get to go first, and then the ladies got to go. And there was no changing of water. We have one tub, and everybody goes through it. So you can imagine what it was like by the time you got to the very end of the line. Ew. The conditions here were horrible. If you were lucky enough to get a mattress, it was filled with Spanish moss. And what is in Spanish moss? Mites, ticks, all kinds of wonderful things. So you were probably getting eaten alive the whole time you were laying on your mattress, and forget about having a pillow. Those were unheard of. Many people died in this jail, a lot of them from dysentery. There also was a gallows outside because they did hang people here. And death row was right near the gallows, so you got to watch them build where you were going to die. 8 people were officially hanged at the jail, but there were probably a lot more than that. Family members had 3 days to collect the body, and if you didn't, it would get shipped out to a potter's field. And to this day, nobody has any idea where that potter's field is. So where those bodies are buried, we don't know, but they do find lots of bodies when they do streets, and other kinds of construction, so maybe some of the prisoners have been buried in some of those places that they found them before. This jail was opened all the way up into 1953, so it ran for a really long time. The old jail was put on the Register of Historic Places, and it is a place that you can tour to this day. As I've told you, I've been through it. It suffered a lot of damage during Hurricane Irma, but they reopened it in May, and it's been fully refurbished, and it looked phenomenal because I was just there about a month ago, so it was great. Now I'm going to take you inside the jail so you can see what the cell block looks like. It's really fascinating.
All the Star Museum over there.
So the schoolhouse is closed too, right? Okay, let's go. Oh my God. Oh, where do you work?
That little space there was. That was the sheriff. He's a big guy. This is the same system that they had at Alcatraz.
This could fall at any minute. Especially no support.
See the lever mechanisms? You can open and close them all at the same time. I don't know if this was a shower. Looks like there was some kind of plumbing in here. Maybe this was the bathroom. These are young tourists visiting the jail. It was the county jail until 1953. Old Royal typewriter.
That cage down there, they used to put a prisoner in it to make an example of him, and they'd hoist it 50 feet up into a tree. All the townspeople would come out and throw fruit at him and taunt him with food and make a picnic of it. They'd be up there for 2 days without any food and water.
Now, this place, obviously, like so many old jails, is haunted. There's all kinds of stuff going on here. Obviously, we hear the doors and cells banging open and closing. There have been full-bodied apparitions seen, including that of Sheriff Joe Perry. He was a very imposing figure, as I told you, so I would not want to see his spirit. And other apparitions have been seen walking around outside of the cells, down on the grounds. Disembodied voices are heard. Sometimes they're singing. A little girl has been heard as well. Some people believe that this is one of Joe Perry's daughters. None of them died here, so I'm wondering if maybe it's something residual. There are 2 phantom smells that are smelled. Of course, one of them is delightful, as in sewage. And the other is kind of peculiar. A lot of people describe it as molasses. It's very, very sweet. They're not exactly sure why the scent is coming through. Obviously, there was some baking that went on here, but I don't know that it would have been anything that was really sweet, and why it would still be here, not sure. But it's something very unusual. I've never heard that about any other old jail that I have covered. I wanted to share with you something that was written in Haunted St. Augustine. It was written by Elizabeth Randall. This is the collection of haunted books, the series that I'm collecting. I was very disappointed with this one. And the main reason why is it says haunted. So inside it should have all kinds of ghost stories, especially because St. Augustine is said to be one of the most haunted cities in America, and it is one of the few that I've actually had experiences. As you read, and she has countless locations in here, very few of them have any ghost stories with them. She's skeptical. She's not a believer, which, hey, I'm there with you. I'm an open-minded skeptic myself. But if you're going to write a book about ghosts, you should probably include some ghosts. She doesn't say anything about any hauntings at the old jail other than this quote that she got from one of the tour guides there. I was like, how do you not write about the ghosts there? Anyway, this is from Kim Jones. She was a desk clerk at the Casablanca Inn at the time that this was written. And for those who don't already know this, the Casablanca Inn is also haunted. Almost every bed and breakfast in St. Augustine claims to be that way. And if you want to know more about a lot of the things that are haunted in St. Augustine, I have a video up on YouTube that's something about Cordova Street in St. Augustine. If you just put in Cordova Street in the search at the History Goes Bump YouTube, you should be able to find it. And the Casablanca Inn we talk about on that. Anyway, she used to be a tour guide at the old jail, and what she had to say is, it was the most inhumane jail. Most inmates didn't last a year. One day, it was more than rainy. There was thunder, there was lightning. Ghosts. That kind of weather brings them out, you know. On the 3rd floor, I saw a guy with a shaven head leave the cell block. Shortly thereafter, the 65-pound iron door creaked shut on its own. But I wasn't fazed. So much paranormal stuff goes on in this town that ghosts are an occupational hazard. So I had to laugh about that because there really are so many ghosts there. And clearly, she's already worked in 2 places that are reputed to be haunted. So is the old jail in St. Augustine haunted? That is for you to decide. Thanks so much for your support, guys. I greatly appreciate it. You are the reason why History Goes Bump gets to go out to the masses. It's you and only you that brings it to them. Thank you.